Hello everyone, welcome to this new video. Today we will have a day in a classroom. We are not personally being in a classroom, but I have been doing observations for one of my classes since I am becoming a teacher, and I am going to share my notes with you, right? On a day that I did my observations, I will share my journal, my notes from the journal that I had from that day, right? It was on March 19th. I did second grade. Those little second grades, they're cute. I observed second grade, and just because I'm sharing it to YouTube, I am not gonna say the name of the school or the teacher because, but I did from 10:30 to 12:50, and they were second graders. I started at 10:30. By that time, the kids were in the NPR. They had orchestra class. I'm pretty sure it was a Wednesday. They had orchestra class, and the kids, my notes say the kids went in the NPR and had a professor teach them about music, right? They had an introduction about music, to music. At 10:40, the orchestra teacher was drawing on the board as the students were following him on a sheet of paper. So he was demonstrating to them, and they were doing it on a sheet of paper to see how they would learn, right? Self-independent work. At 10:50 a.m., the professor started explaining the drawings and their meanings. So they were doing self-dependent work by doing whatever the teacher was doing on the board. They were doing it on a paper, and by this time he took the time to explain to the students what they meant, like explaining the drawings, whatever he did, and the names, the meanings of the drawings from the class. It was symbols related to music because, remember, this is an orchestra class. 11:05. By this time, they had a little bit of time passed. The professor was having kids entertain when teaching them sounds and vocals by doing beats and having the students follow after him, right? So he was doing sounds and they were doing it after him. He was explaining to them what the notes meant, and then they created like a pattern to follow. So he was doing the pattern and they would follow after him. At 11:30, Miss, the teacher's name, and I walked the students to the classroom. We took them, we made them in a line, and then they walked back to the classroom. At 11:36, the teacher rewarded the students. She has a very good strategy that she uses, and I loved it. It takes a lot of money, but I think it's worth it. For you to keep your students in the classroom well behaved or listen, like follow instructions, whatever you need to do to have them listen to your teaching. She has a strategy of where she rewards students, right? So when we got back to the classroom, she took a minute or two to reward the students who were paying attention and listening during the lesson with goldfish, right? She gave them goldfish. She has like a container of goldfish. She puts in a plate, some of them, and then she starts giving goldfish to the students that were actually paying attention and who were participating, who were engaged in the lesson, right? And the ones that were not distracted by other students or by other objects, right? She has goldfish, she had gummies, she has cookies to give them, like she gives a cookie to each. And since they are second graders, that's a good strategy, right? It might not work for upper grade, but it works for lower grade. Because, they love cookies, they love gummies, they love treats, I can say snacks, they love those. So that was a good strategy that I loved. I took from her, and I was like, that's a great strategy to give the students, you know. At 11:39, students did a Just Dance from Alegría Macarena as a brain break, right? To stretch. They were sitting for a long time in the auditorium. It was like an hour, or I don't know, 40 minutes. But you know, second grade tends to get tired pretty easy after being sitting. Like, they are energetic and they want to be running around, they want to be yelling, they want to be screaming, they want to be playing around because they are really energetic. So she took some time in between the lessons to have them do a brain break. That's what she called it. They were dancing to the moves that they were watching a video, and they were moving as the people in the video were moving, right, to the music. They were dancing to it to get, you know, the energy out. At 11:45, the students practiced math on an individual boards with even or odd problems and others for a quiz. So this time, they did a quiz. They didn't do a quiz. They started practicing. They had teacher had her board on the projector. She was asking questions. They were just reviewing everything they had already learned through the lessons of last couple past weeks, so that they could do a math quiz after that, right? She took the time to review every question that, you know, she was gonna put on the exam. She reviewed a similar question with them so that they would remember part of it. At 11:58, they had to stretch again and wiggle their body. She told them to stand behind their chairs and wiggle their bodies. They did. They just stood up behind their chair because teacher was being careful that they wouldn't go all around the room like running. So she was like, stand behind your chair and then you can wiggle your bodies, you can stretch for a few minutes. At 11:45, at 12:04, she had helpers grab the table dividers. They had these dividers, like, divided in 3 parts, where you put it on the table and then you can it's like to do your test. They did that. She had helpers from each table. She has a helper on each table, and then she's like, oh, table number 1, helpers, go get the dividers, table number 2 and 3 and 4. And then they started doing the quiz, right? She would read the question for them, and they would have to respond to that on the papers that they got. They each got a paper. And then my last note is at 12:37, which is they went to lunch, right? I did up to 12:50, but by this time I helped her watch that the kids would get in line properly in their line order, and then they walked up to lunch, and you know, the regular schedule, they just line up, walk to the cafeteria, get their lunch, sit on the tables. And I stayed there. The teacher went to have her lunch. I stayed there for like a couple minutes because I was gonna get more time of my observations done. So I was just watching them while they were there, in case they needed help with something, like asking, wanna go to the bathroom. I was like, sure, you know. It was really interesting. I really enjoyed doing observations at a school, helping the teacher. There was a couple of times where I did help the teacher a lot. I was like a TA, and I really enjoyed it. I loved it. I really enjoyed a lot of it, and helping the students, which is what I love. I would help them now and then. Sometimes the teacher would have me watching. Like for the quiz, she told me to watch when the students are done. They were like, she was like, you guys raise your hands and Miss Paola will come to you and pick up your test. So that's what I did. I checked that they weren't copying from other students, and that they also did everything and collected their tests back. And then I returned them to the teacher after collecting them from the students. That was one part I took in the classroom that day, and I really think it was so catchy the way she rewarded the students. Just because you need to find a way to have your students engaged and entertained, and the way to do that is by rewarding them, mainly second grades. I know upper graders, they don't care, because I've been with upper graders too, and they're like, I don't like that, right? But second graders do enjoy it, and they're expecting to get something, so they would always be trying their best to do their work. If they were not, they knew that they wouldn't get something, right? But if they knew that they wouldn't get something, even if they were doing the work, then they wouldn't do it. That's why I like that she was rewarding them, and I think that's a great thing to do. And that is my day out of school. So hopefully you enjoyed it, and yeah, I will see you next time.